Hello all. Today I am coming to you from my kitchen. I'm actually working on a pot pie. It's a chicken pot pie. I don't know if you can see it, but while it's baking, I just wanted to talk to you about a few things. So I've been watching this series on Hulu, and I just want to get the name right, so I'm just going to look at some notes. You can probably hear my washer in the background. I'm just being a housewife today, but I wanted to talk to you about this. So on Hulu, there is a documentary series called Stolen Youth Inside the Cult at Sarah Lawrence. And my daughter and I particularly are interested in, studying cults a little bit more closely. And I personally feel like they have a lot of relevance to the work that we do, because some of the same mind control techniques that are used by cult leaders are actually used by domestic violence perpetrators. So very quickly, the series begins by talking about a friend group that lived together in a residence, a college residence, and one of their friends, their father, her name was Talia Ray, came to stay with them. And his name was Larry, and he had been in prison. And one of the things he went to prison for, though you don't find out until you dig a little deeper beyond the documentary, was, you guessed it, domestic violence. And the mom, had custody of the kids, but he ended up with the girls and he didn't give them back. And there was a lot of drama around that. And then I think he went to jail for some kind of financial scam type of thing, embezzling or something that he was involved with. And when he got out of jail, his daughter, she was in college at Sarah Lawrence, and she felt bad for him, so he came to stay with her. Well, he began to have what he called therapy sessions with her friends. Now, he was not a therapist. He didn't have a background in psychology. He didn't have training. He wasn't licensed or anything like that. But, it started out like he was sort of giving them advice about their life. And these are young people who have come from broken families, have come from difficult situations, have worked very hard to get in at Sarah Lawrence and attend college there. And so, they were very vulnerable to this father-type figure who was coming in and, really just showing them some attention, direction, and love. And so over the course of time, he began to gain control over their life. So this is something that we see with abusers. Essentially, when you meet them, they do something we call it love bombing. And you've probably heard that phrase before. What it means is they figure out where you're vulnerable and what it is that you most desire, and they focus all of their attention there on essentially giving you exactly what you need and exactly what you want. And by doing this, they gain your trust. And then over time, they gain control over different aspects of your life. And this is exactly what happened with these teens. He began to isolate them from their families and their friends. He began to convince them that they needed to make changes in their lives that he said would benefit them. But actually, these changes were setting the stage to just give him even more control over their lives. So his scam with these people, what he gained from them, was not only did he become their leader, who they looked up to and revered, but eventually he got them to ask for money from their friends and family. And he made, oh my gosh, I think the one girl said $700,000 one year and over $1 million another year doing this, because, we had half a dozen 20-somethings going to their family and telling them that they desperately needed to borrow money. And, he was able to take that money and use it for who knows what. I don't even know if they recovered the money. I don't even know if eventually the FBI investigated and froze assets. I'm not sure what happened to that money. But, some of the families didn't have a lot of money to give, and they did because they loved their kids, and their kids were saying, hey, we really need this. So what he did is he used the same technique as the guy from the Nexium cult, and he essentially found ways to blackmail these kids. So for some of them, he had them participate in, sexual acts with him and other people, and that became a blackmailing thing. My ex-husband did this with me, and it's very common. Again, I think it's Keith Renard, who was the Nexium guy. He did the same thing. And then he began to record things. And that's kind of an interesting concept because, recording things can be really useful and helpful. But in situations with cults or with people who want to gain control over other people, sometimes recording is just a blackmail. And so he would basically interrogate. In fact, some of the kids use the word interrogation. He would interrogate them about, they had damaged, the coffee pot or, the clothes dryer or something. And he bought those things. And so they owed him money to repair or replace these items that he owned. And so over time, these things started to add up because, of course, he wanted top dollar. And these were the things that kids were going to their family and friends and asking to borrow money for. Hey, I broke Larry's washer and I need to replace it, so I need to borrow this much money, like $2,000 or whatever. And then over time, this just escalated. One of the other girls who stayed with him the longest, he actually sex trafficked her. Now, again, I can relate to this. And he made quite a bit of money sex trafficking her. He convinced her that that was how she could make the money to pay him back for what he was owed by her. And so she did this. And he also had a sibling group that came to live with him. The boy Santos was living there with his daughter, Talia. And again, this is on campus, on Sarah Lawrence College. So, folks, when you send your kids to college, please don't assume that college authorities are always looking after your kids, that people in dorms or in residences are, actually watching what's going on with your kids. A lot of people, most people view college-age kids as adults, and they figure, they can, handle it, they can take care of themselves. And this series, which, by the way, is very difficult to watch in parts, illustrates how vulnerable our kids are at that age. Because they are learning who they are. They're figuring out who they are. They're practicing being adults. And so if predators are after them, either to kidnap them, sex traffic them, or exploit them in ways that, such as this man did, it's very easy for them to do this. It's very easy pickings. So please absolutely continue to be a helicopter parent with your kids, even when they're in college, even when they're college age. You need to check on them. You need to question them about who they're hanging around with. And if you see any of the signs, that things, or even if you just have that gut instinct feeling that things, might be off, you need to be a pushy parent. You need to be a little pushy. You need to say, look, I'm paying for part of your college, so I do have a say here. I want to know, I want to come in and visit you. I want to meet your friends. I want to see how you're living. Please check up on your kids. It's important for kids to learn independence, but they don't have to do it all at once. The second they turn 18, they don't have to be out your door. The second they turn 18, they don't have to have, good jobs or know exactly what they want to do in life. Think back to when you were that age. Most of us struggled to figure some of these things out. So please don't leave your kids high and dry. Check on them, maintain those good relationships with them. Be a little nosy. Get out there and visit them. Look at their dorms and their living situations. Check in, visit. Be present in their lives still, even though they're adults. So back to the series, which I highly recommend if you're interested in forensics or true crime. Studying cults and cult dynamic is just something that applies to so many situations. So in the end, when the kids graduated from college, which was good, I was surprised they were able to under the duress that he put them under, he moved them out of state. So even further from their family and friends, he moved them out of state and again isolated them, and he used them as slave labor on this property that his father had left him or given him, something like that. And there continued to be this criminal activity. And the one girl, she was part of a sibling group. As I said, her brother was there. He invited the younger sister to come live there. And then he introduced the older sister, who was almost a licensed doctor, medical doctor. She was working on that residency and training kind of, situation, to meet him. And when they met, they supposedly fell in love. And again, she was vulnerable. He saw exactly what she needed and wanted. And he focused right in on giving those things to her. He completely and totally love bombed her. And when you're getting into a relationship, you really need to watch for these things. Please screen. Please don't say, oh, this is great. This guy is giving me roses and he's taking me to expensive places. He's wining and dining me. Folks, that's almost always a red flag. If somebody needs to do those things to impress you or to win you, you need to ask why. What are they covering up? Why can't they just be authentic and genuine without stuff, without kind of bribing you almost? So Larry, he saw right away, this guy Larry, the cult leader, saw right away what these young folks needed, and he gave it to them. And because of that, he was able to gain control and power over their lives to such an extent that they were severely damaged. So the three siblings, the sibling group, they ended up completely isolating from their parents, completely brainwashed. But when he began to try to turn them against each other, then the youngest daughter left. And when she left, when she was brave enough to walk away from that cult situation, not too long after that, the brother left. And then Larry was arrested. And wow, the oldest sister, who had been his girlfriend, one of his girlfriends, he actually had 2 women that were sleeping with him. Those 2 women, they hung on the longest. But in the end, the more time they spent away from Larry, the more their brains began to return to normal, their heads began to clear, and they could really understand the goods, the bads, and what had happened to them. So I tell people this all the time. Step 1 is getting a victim away from their abuser. And we have a case right now. We're trying to get a woman out of a situation. I know in my heart, if we can get her away from this abuser, then all of these horrible things that have been happening to her are going to spill out of her, and she's going to become strong again, and she's going to be able to heal. But getting her away is very tricky. In this series, 2 of the siblings were able to see that things were bad, and they just walked away on their own. They just walked right out of the compound and they left. But the oldest sister, because he had closer ties with her, especially sexual ties, seemed to be very binding with cult leaders, with domestic violence perpetrators, with, I hate to say this is disgusting, but with incest, with parents that violate their own children or family members. Those sexual ties seem to hold victims in place longer. And it's much harder for them to leave because of the trauma that is inflicted by sexual abuse. So, some victims are going to leave on their own. And in some situations, you're not going to be able to get them to leave on their own. You're actually going to have to get their perpetrator arrested and removed in order for them to start the healing process and for their eyes to be opened. You have to sort of deprogram people. So I just want to tie this into some recent cases. The organization where we had to help get this person out of leadership, he was definitely a cult leader type figure. He carefully groomed people, and those he couldn't win over, he found ways to get rid of them. And once we were able to get him removed from power, these people started to heal. They started to share things with us, and they started to realize that they had been duped. And the same thing, happened for me. When I separated from my abuser, every day that I spent away from him, my brain started to defog. This is why my URL for the consultancy page, my idea, I should say, for that URL was clearing the fog. Because as we get victims away from their abusers, that brain fog starts to clear, and you start to become yourself again, and you start to feel like yourself again. So you can think clearly, you can make your own decisions, you're not controlled, you're not living in fear. So in conclusion, I just wanted to share a few of these things. I think the series is worth watching. If you have any questions or you want to discuss this further, feel free to message me, and we can, chat via Messenger about some of these dynamics. Maybe you see some of these things happening to you, happening to a friend, happening to your child. I hope not, but we know what the statistics are. We know that for domestic violence, it's 1 out of 4 in the United States, maybe getting closer to 1 out of 3 for women. And I think the last piece of data I saw for men was 1 out of 7. It's a lot of people being victimized. We also know that cults like this are, becoming more, I don't know if they're becoming more frequent or just more evident to us as criminologists. We see clearly, excuse me. So this is a criminal element in our society that is huge. It's sucking a lot of people in. It's hurting a lot of people. And it's definitely keeping those of us who fight crime and try to protect people very busy. So, in conclusion, as I said, watch the series on Hulu and let me know what you think, either in the comments or you can message me on the, Facebook Messenger. I have the consultancy page. I have my, my regular page, Marsha Roberts Michaels or Roberts Michaels Consultancy. Again, my email is m_rbrts@hotmail.com. If you want me to text with you, I can do that. You just need to let me know in the comments. But this is definitely worth a look, and it's worth thinking about, because this isn't just something that happens infrequently, and it isn't just something that, is in the headlines but not in your town. The reason that I've titled my videos Forensic Psychology in Your Backyard is because it's here, folks. There are criminal elements in every community, and in order to stop them from hurting and harming, we need to make people more aware. So you know what you're looking for, and you can keep the people you love safe. Anyway, wanted to share. I hope you're all doing well today. Time to take my pie out and eat it. I'm definitely ready for lunch. Talk to you later. Bye.